What is up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. So today, very excited to be bringing you this interview with Jordan Syatt. If you guys don't know, he just recently released a video on his channel where he ate a Big Mac every single day for 30 days, and he was actually able to lose 7 pounds while he did that. Now, I wanted to interview him and get a little bit more behind the scenes of why he did it, and just give you guys a little bit of a peek behind the curtain so you guys can kind of understand it a little bit more. I truly think that his video that he put out is very important, and it can help a lot of people out. So when I first saw it, I messaged him right away. I was like, dude, I need to get you to come on the channel and we need to have a conversation. So that's exactly what you guys are about to see. If you haven't checked out the video we're talking about, I will link it down in the description. I would recommend watching it before this, but if you want to watch this before that, that's fine too. But I really think that it'll help you understand the conversation a little bit more. But without further ado, let's play the intro. So Jordan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me and talk about this insane challenge that I'm sure has been, I'm sure it's consumed your life for the past month. So hopefully this is one of the last times you have to talk about it at length.
It's been like a month and a half of craziness, but it's been really fun, man, honestly. So thank you for having me on and giving me a chance to talk about it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. So, I mean, just jumping straight into it, 30 Big Macs, 30 days. What made you want to do that? What was the reason for being like, this is what I want to do?
You know, there were several driving ones, but I think the main one is that, and I think you and I we have a similar population of people that follows us and gets information from us, is there's a lot of food anxiety. There's a lot of people who they feel like they have one bad meal and they feel like everything is screwed up, and they feel like they get nervous or anxious or guilty when they, God forbid, have a slice of pizza at their daughter's birthday party, or they go to their nephew's graduation ceremony and have a slice of cake. And then not only do they feel guilty or anxious about it, but then once they do it, they feel like everything's ruined, and they just say, screw it, and they quit. And that's why most people don't achieve their goals, because they end up quitting because they feel like they failed. And I wanted to show people, as long as you get back on track, you can't quit. You can't fail. Mm-hmm. As long as you get back on track, you will not fail. And there was so much messaging and underlying, so many layers to that within the 30 days in terms of, number one, having the Big Mac every single day and teaching you how to manage your overall calorie intake. But also things like, I went to one of my best friend's wedding, and showed how I gained over 3 pounds just by enjoying the wedding and having fun. And I showed the weigh-ins, and I was like, as long as you get back on track, the weight will come back down. And it did. So I just wanted to show people, you can't screw up. You just have to get back on track. And just because you went out and you enjoyed yourself, you had a McDonald's, you had a slice of pizza, nothing was messed up from it at all.
Mm-hmm. And I love that because it totally shows that you only fail if you tell yourself that you failed, right? Like a Big Mac to you might be a failure, but to somebody else, it's like, oh, it's just a Big Mac. It's no big deal. And for you showed that you could have it every day. Again, you ad nauseum said, I'm not saying you should do this. I'm not advocating eating McDonald's. McDonald's isn't paying me. But you kind of have to do that because people are obviously going to accuse you, right? But you showed that you can have that. And as long as you account for it, it doesn't need to be a slip up or a failure. It can just be a meal. Again, are you recommending that? No, but it doesn't. It's all about the mindset that you have going into it, I think, more than anything. And the mindset you have coming out of it, right? Like, how do I feel afterwards? Am I just going to be like, well, I failed now, might as well just eat, a whole city because I failed, and I'll just eat whatever I want?
I agree, man. I think so many people, they allow each individual meal to dictate whether or not they're doing well or not, right? It's almost like every single weigh-in, if the scale goes up, they're obviously failing, and if the scale goes down, it means they're winning, which is a super dangerous mindset to have.
Absolutely.
You can't have this pass-fail mindset with stuff, because inevitably when you end up failing in your eyes, it's like, well, why, whatever, fuck it, I quit. It's like, why bother? This is a very common psychological phenomenon. And I believe they, like psychologists call it the why bother phenomenon. Or as soon as you do something that you think you failed, it's like, well, why bother do it anymore? And the more that, and this is why so much of my content is geared towards showing people you didn't screw up, that it's not a failure, because the more that people cannot use I failed as a justification to quit altogether, the more they're actually going to achieve their goals.
I, without a doubt, 100% agree. I think something that comes to my mind, and this is not even really related to the challenge, but what I think is so cool about you and the content that you put out is I really do think we have a lot of very similar followers, right? Like there's a lot of overlap with us. What's interesting is that normally when I have a lot of overlap with someone, it's because they've lost a lot of weight and we have similar stories. Our stories are very different.
It's true.
But it just goes to show you that you don't have to go through some massive weight loss to understand what other people might need to do or what they're going through that are trying to lose a lot of weight. Am I thankful that I went through my weight loss and I can understand that? Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't trade that for the world. But it doesn't mean that if you're someone that's trying to lose a lot of weight, you can only take advice from people that have lost a lot of weight. There are people out there that know what the struggle is and understand how to get through that maybe haven't lost hundreds of pounds, but have done the work to understand those things.
Well, that's a tremendous point to bring up. That's a very important point. And I'll start by saying this. I can never understand what it's like to lose hundreds of pounds because I've never done it. I can't understand what that is actually like because I've never done it. But I think the important clarification here is just because I haven't actually done it doesn't mean I can't help people do it. And it's a logical fallacy. It's a very common logical fallacy to assume that just because someone hasn't done something, they're not an expert in it. It's like that. Under that same logic, that would mean if you have cancer, the only person who could treat your cancer is someone who's also had cancer.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It's like you take that same line of logic. The only person, if you have to get your gallbladder removed, the only person who could understand how to remove your gallbladder is someone else who has had their gallbladder removed. That's not how it works. And I think it's important to clarify, like, I will never understand the experience of going through it, but I've helped hundreds and thousands of people through that process. And I've learned how to communicate with them and how to help them. But for me to say like, oh, I know what it's like, of course not. That would be outrageously pretentious and obnoxious and false. But that doesn't take away the fact that I'm still very good at helping people do it.
And like, honestly, some of the worst advice I've ever seen is from people that have lost a lot of weight. And I'm like, what are you saying to that? Why would you tell them to do that? So like, sometimes you might want to avoid people that have lost a lot of weight, but you know, that's just me. That's just what I'm saying. Okay. So getting back, I want to get back to the challenge. This was something that had kind of came to my mind when I was watching the video, which if you guys haven't seen it, like seriously, go check that out. Was there ever a time, you know, in the middle of the challenge, towards the end of the challenge, where you were like, I don't want to do this, or like, why am I doing this? Does this even make sense? Like, were there ever any doubts that were kind of going on when you were doing it?
There was a time about 2 weeks in, about day 12 or something, where within about a 72-hour time frame, there were several people on social media who called me out. The worst part being they didn't actually tag me in it. They didn't like discuss it with me personally. They were just bringing up the Big Mac challenge and saying how stupid it was and how harmful it was. And that was like really devastating to me. Not because I care about what they think, but because they were saying that it was going to do more harm than good. That's really what hit home with me. I was like, the last thing I would ever want to do is something that's going to harm somebody or do more harm than it is good. What ended up happening though is I got several of them on the phone. Like one of them was not willing to get on the phone. The other few were willing to get on the phone, and I spoke with them. And actually, I recorded the conversations. And by the end of the calls, it turned out that they hadn't actually done their research on the challenge. They had seen the headline of it. They'd seen what it was called, and they just assumed that it was promoting unhealthy eating and doing really bad things. But once we got on the phone and on the call, and we went through step by step what's actually going on, they were like, yeah, you're right. Like, I hadn't actually looked into it. This is actually really good. I agree with it, which was great. And I think even if I hadn't had those calls, I still knew just based on the literally thousands of messages that I was getting about how many people it was helping, I was still doing the right thing. But that was definitely a point in which I was like, fuck, like this sucks. Like no one likes to hear that like people don't like what they're doing. No one likes to hear that ever. But there was never a point after that in which I questioned whether or not I was doing the right thing, because I knew that it was definitely going to help way more people.
Yeah, I mean, and it shows with, especially just like with the video being out now and being able to see, I mean, the like to dislike ratio, there's like 30 dislikes and 4,000 likes or something like that. It's like, it's not even close, right? And so I think it does show that you, like, I think what is the most important thing about the documentary, and I mean, you might agree, you might disagree, is just it takes away that all or nothing mentality. We kind of talked about it a little bit. Everyone, I mean, I put out a tweet recently, and like put it on my Instagram as well, where I was kind of talking about how, like, if you're severely overweight, the last thing you should be worried about is the number of reps in the sets that you're doing at the gym. Like, focus on your nutrition first. Like, there are things that you can focus on that are going to bring a lot more, like, that are going to move that needle a lot more than worrying about this little minute things. And like when it comes to, like, someone said on your Instagram, they're like, the video's too long. What's like the cliff notes? And you put calorie deficit, which is like a joke that you use, but truly that's kind of the cliff notes of it. It's like, if you stay in a deficit, no matter what types of food you're eating, you can lose weight. Again, you're not advocating eating McDonald's every day, but like if that ends up being something you have to do, that's something that you can still make it work. And I think that's what's so important, is because all these nutrition gurus, all these, I'm getting on one now, but all these nutrition gurus, all these like dietitians and nutritionists, not every single one, but there's a good amount that like they make you feel bad if you're not eating this perfectly healthy and organic and great food, when like for some people they can't afford that. For other people, they just don't know how to cook and they don't want to eat that stuff. So they feel like, well, I'm not gonna be able to make any progress, especially if they're massively overweight, right? I'm not gonna be able to make any progress because I can't afford it. It's too hard to cook. Oh, they have all of these barriers that they have. And then you were able to show you like, no, you don't need to have that many barriers. Like, there is a way to make this work and make it a lot easier for yourself. And that is so unbelievably important. At least I think it is.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. And it's funny because you look at a lot of the higher level nutritionists and RDs and all these things, and they'll be the first people to say you shouldn't ask people to change everything at once, one thing at a time. But then they see something like this and they're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, you shouldn't be promoting this. And I'm like, well, let's look at what I'm actually doing in here. If you have someone who's eating McDonald's every meal of the day and they're eating way too much, the first step wouldn't be to say, don't eat any McDonald's. The first step would be to, hey, how can we reduce your portion sizes and also get you to like, just to start losing weight and being healthier while being aware of how much you're eating. So for me, it's like, this is the first step for a lot of people to be able to say, hey, you know what? He still ate this every day and made progress. I could still eat this. I just have to reduce my portion size. And usually what happens from there is then they start to realize, I'm still really hungry though. What else can I eat to fill up more? And that's when they start to go, oh, I could go get some more vegetables. I could go get some more fruit. It's like, you try and say you have to go from eating McDonald's every meal to nothing at all. They'll say, fuck you. But when you can show them they can still have it in appropriate portions, all of a sudden they're like, you know what? Like, that's doable. I can start with that.
Well, and then eventually, right, they're eating the Big Mac, and then they're realizing, man, like you even kind of said it in the video, it's 500 calories, and I'm not full from that at all. And then you realize, maybe this isn't the best choice for me, and then you just naturally kind of make a different decision, right? So I think that's really important. Another thing that I haven't seen many comments about it, but for me, it like hit the nail on the head in the documentary, is you talked about after the first Big Mac that you had, how you felt after eating that. And this is, so one of the most asked questions that I get is people, they ask, how do you avoid, you know, the foods that you used to eat, like the pizzas and the Big Macs and like all of these like foods that are quote unquote really dirty, unhealthy foods. And I say, for me, one of the things that really motivates me not to eat that stuff is how I feel afterwards now. And like, it's hard to explain because before I ate that stuff, that's all I ate. That was it. That was the only types of food that I ate, was fast food, junk food. Like, that's it. That's all I ate. So I didn't notice anything after I ate because I always felt like crap, basically, right? But now whenever I do eat, it's like, Chipotle is not even the worst thing in the world, but like if I do eat Chipotle, I know that I'm not going to feel that great. So the only time I ever eat it is like if it's my last meal of the day and I'm not doing anything for the rest of the day, so I could just, be chilling. And so I thought that it was incredibly important that you brought that up. You're like, I don't feel good after eating that, because that's something that people don't really understand.
Yeah, I think it's super important. And that was, I think the most important thing that I really wanted to get across was I had a purpose in making this documentary, but I'm not going to leave out or cherry pick shit just to get my purpose across. Like, and that's why I was, from the very beginning, I was like, and to be fully transparent and honest with you, I feel like shit. I don't want to work out right now. This makes me feel awful, but I have to work. And that's really where there was a lot of layered messaging in there, where I was like, I don't want to work out right now. I would much rather take a nap, but I have to work out and I'm going to get it in. And that was also along the same lines of where people were like, they kept asking me, like, do you want to make it a meal? Do you want to add the French fries to it? And I kept saying, like, nope, I'm just going to have the Big Mac because I have a choice and I don't have to supersize it just because you're asking me to. Like, I have a decision and I can choose. And so there's so much layered within there saying, like, I don't like how it makes me feel. I'm still really hungry. I'm going to keep following through with this challenge because it's what I want to do. But even then throughout, like, Rico would say, are you sick of it? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm tired of it, man. Like, this sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. But, like, showing people, just, it's so important to show people the truth on all ends. And that's where I think something like Super Size Me really did a shitty job. And it sucks because I respect Morgan Spurlock a lot, especially as a filmmaker and the talent of his and like his creativeness. Like, I think he's really a tremendous creator. What sucks is that it was so clearly biased and narrative driven. And I actually very firmly believe that documentary in and of itself created more fear and food anxiety than probably anything up until like What the Health came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is really interesting, like, when you brought that up, because I remember they had me watch that documentary when I was in high school or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember, because I was a big boy in high school, after I watched it, I was like, man, I want a Big Mac now. Because it just, like, it didn't bother me at all. Because I was like, man, I'm way worse off than he is. So it's like, whatever. But like, truly, it made people think, like, whenever you would think of unhealthy, McDonald's was always the first thing that came to mind. And McDonald's isn't the best choice, but there really are way worse things that you could be eating. But if you mention McDonald's, it's like everyone's like, oh no, I would never eat that. That's disgusting. I would never. And like you would say, like, when you first started the challenge, everyone's like, oh, McDonald's, that's so disgusting. I can't believe you put that in your body. And then eventually people were like, wait, I kind of want some McDonald's, like, just because it's McDonald's doesn't mean that it's this terrible thing that is way worse than any other fast food. It's like, it's just food. And so I thought that was really interesting. I'm glad that you kind of brought up the parallels and the differences between what you did and what happened in Super Size Me, because again, like you said, everything he did was to make himself unhealthy. Like, if he would have eaten literally anywhere else, even if he ate food that he made for himself, but he was in as much of a surplus as he was, completely stopped working out. Like, if I did that, I'd gain the weight back. If you did that, you'd gain, like, it's not some special thing that McDonald's did to him. It's like, no, it's just being in that high of a surplus, which granted, yeah, eating McDonald's makes it kind of easy to do that. But like, anywhere you go, if you did that, you would have pretty much the same results. I would put a bet on that at least.
Of course. And not to mention, like, for example, one thing that he did is he kept getting the regular soda in the biggest, most, like, the largest drink possible, like the trash can sized cup that filled with regular soda. And all the rules were clear. He just had to get what they had, and he could have gotten the water. He could have gotten the diet soda. Like, he didn't have to get that every single time, and definitely not in the largest thing possible. But I mean, if you just took that, and instead of him getting the regular soda, and he just had his own meals with, like, I don't know, like, with whatever drink filled with organic cane sugar, same shit would have happened. Mm-hmm. And there were a number of times where he was filling himself and he was eating. He's like, man, I'm stuffed, but I've got to finish the meal.
Yeah.
And he threw up because he was so full that he couldn't eat anymore, but he kept eating. It's like, that's not how normal people eat this shit. Mm-hmm. Like, when you're full, you stop eating. Like, no one is, like, I shouldn't say no one. Most people are not regularly eating to the point of such discomfort that it's causing them to throw up. It was such a very biased, narrative-driven, one-sided point of view that's just like, you don't have to say yes when they ask you to supersize it. You don't have to get the regular soda. You don't even have to get the diet soda. They fucking sell water.
Yep.
Like, you don't have to get the meal. You don't have to, like, there are so many options there. And for him to, and like, actually, there's one scene that it's burned into my memory. Like, I didn't even talk about this in the documentary. There's one scene that's just like burned into my head where he was having the big breakfast from McDonald's, which is already a massive calorie. But like, it's huge. It's like well over 1,000. I think it's well over 1,500. It's crazy. It's at least 1,200. And the video of him in that scene is pouring every single maple syrup on top of the pancake, every single one. Like, I've never seen a human in my life use that much maple syrup. But he took every maple syrup that they gave him in the thing and kept putting on, basically being like, well, this is what they gave me, so this is what I have to do. And I'm like, I love maple syrup. The amount of maple syrup that you just use looks severely unappetizing because it's swimming in that. It's like, and I would actually, they didn't show how he prepared for the weigh-ins, but after watching it, it really got me wondering, like, because 30 pounds in a month is an insane amount to gain. Like, it is outrageous. And we saw just from my weigh-ins, like, I lost over a pound of urine on my first weigh-in. I very much wonder if he stuffed himself stupid before the final weigh-in to make, because I've seen it in powerlifting and in wrestling and in weigh-ins when people either need to lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of weight in order to make a weight class. Like, you can easily add 10 pounds just by drinking a bunch right before you get on the scale. I very much wonder, and we'll never know unless he decides to tell us, if he manipulated the weigh-in deliberately to gain a ton of weight before that final weigh-in.
Yeah, I would not be at all surprised if he did that. And I think so with the two documentaries, I think one of the biggest differences is, like, yours was your message was you have a choice, right? It's your responsibility. You can choose whether to get, like, you would always say, like, I'm not going to get the fries. I don't need to get the fries, right? You can make that decision. And then his was, well, they asked me, so I have to say yes. And it, like, that's the two, I think that's one of the main differences between the two documentaries. You were like, well, I don't have to say yes because I am a grown adult and I can make my own decisions. And then he was like, well, I guess I got to say yes and I have to finish it because that's what I have to do. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, if that's what you're going to do, then of course you're going to gain weight. But if you practice being an adult and saying, no, I think I'm good. I don't need the extra large soda. I don't need, or I'll put diet instead or whatever. Like, you can see results. And you don't have to always be like, okay, yeah, I guess so. It just doesn't make any sense.
It's like you take that logic to any other thing in life, and all of a sudden you realize how stupid it is. It's like every time, like, you go to the store and they're like, well, you know, it's buy like 2 get 1 50% off. Like, do you want to do that? It's like, you don't have to say yes when you do that. You don't have to get another one just because they make you the offer. You're an adult. It's like, you don't have to go and spend your money somewhere just because, like, you don't have to spend every dollar in your pocket just because it's in your pocket. It's like, oh no, you know what? Like, I've spent enough money today. I should save the rest. It's like, treat your calories like you treat your finances, and all of a sudden you realize it's not that big of a fucking difference.
Yeah, I 100% agree. All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you coming on the channel and talking about it. I mean, I could sit here and talk about it forever. I don't want this video to be an hour long, but I will make sure I put all the links down in the description. So, like, if you guys haven't checked out the video yet, seriously, check it out. It's really, really good. I've actually had a few people message me on Instagram saying thank you for linking it on my Instagram. They're like, it really helped me out a lot. So I really think if you're someone that's struggling with just understanding calories or understanding that stuff, it can actually be a very valuable video to watch. But again, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
And once again, huge thank you to Jordan for coming on the channel. I seriously recommend checking out his channel. Everything will be linked down in the description. I really hope that today's video was able to give you guys some insight. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. There was one other thing that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, look how buff I am. Ugh.